Aaliyah stood at the glass door, her breath catching. Mud splattered her once pristine white pantsuit. Raindrops dripped from her braids. Behind her, the lobby buzzed with the low hum of conversation and keyboard clicks. But all she could feel was the burn of eyes locking on her. This was supposed to be the biggest day of her life. She had spent weeks preparing for this interview. Resume reviews, perfecting her elevator pitch. Her outfit, immaculate when she left the house. Her confidence, unshakable, until the city decided otherwise. Just 30 minutes ago, she was sprinting up from a flooded subway platform. On the stairs, she'd spotted a little boy crying, sprawled on the ground, soaked and scared. Without thinking, she'd helped him up, wiped off his hands, comforted him. In doing so, she slipped herself, her entire left side scraping against a muddy wall. Her white pantsuit was now stained, her blazer soaked, her shoes ruined. She could have ignored him. She could have saved her clothes, her pride, her chance. But that's not who Aaliyah is. Now, standing in the lobby of one of the most prestigious tech firms in Atlanta, she looked nothing like the polished professional she knew herself to be. Her heels squished from the rainwater. Her blazer clung to her arms. Her resume, safely tucked in her bag, was the only part of her that hadn't betrayed her. Receptionists looked up and then away. A man in a designer suit raised an eyebrow. No one said anything, but the silence was screaming. She could turn around, walk out, blame the storm, reschedule. No one would blame her. But deep down, she knew walking away would mean walking away from everything she'd worked for. Or she could walk in anyway. And then ding, a sleek elevator opened. A man stepped out, tailored suit, calm eyes, unmistakable authority. The CEO. He paused when he saw her. And then, he did something no one expected. This isn't just a story about a job interview. Welcome to Stories with Mr. Gray. If you love uncovering the truth and standing up for justice, hit subscribe, like and drop the flag of your country in the comments below. Aaliyah Thomas was raised in the small town of Milledgeville, Georgia, by her grandmother, Miss Evelyn, a retired schoolteacher with an iron will and a heart full of gospel. Their home had creaky floors, books stacked in every corner, and a refrigerator that buzzed louder than the TV. It wasn't perfect, but it was filled with love, lessons, and expectations. Miss Evelyn had one rule. You will be twice as good to get half as far. And baby, we don't complain, we conquer. Aaliyah took that to heart. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she was always the one people counted on. In high school, she was valedictorian. Not because she was naturally gifted, though she was, but because she worked harder than anyone else. She tutored classmates after school, cleaned houses on weekends with her aunt, and studied late into the night with flashlight batteries that sometimes ran out before her ambition did. She didn't have tutors or tech camps. She had library books, YouTube tutorials, and an old laptop that wheezed every time she opened more than 2 tabs. Still, she taught herself to code. Not because it was trendy, but because it was empowering. It gave her the ability to build something out of nothing, to solve problems no one else around her even understood. What made her stand out wasn't just her brilliance. It was her resilience. She had faced more no's than doors, but she learned early on that rejection wasn't an end. It was redirection. She knew the weight of expectations and the sting of underestimation. And tech, that was her sanctuary. Building apps, solving problems, debugging lines of code. It gave her control in a world that often felt unpredictable. After earning a scholarship to Georgia Tech, Aaliyah crushed it, interned at 3 companies, led a coding boot camp for underprivileged girls, volunteered at robotics camps, and graduated with honors. But even with her resume stacked, she still felt the weight of being the only one in the room. The only woman, the only black face, the only person without a trust fund or family connections. The pressure wasn't just to succeed. It was to represent, to excel not just for herself, but for her community. For the girls in her old neighborhood who thought tech was for other people. For her grandmother who prayed over every exam. For every time she'd walked into a space and felt the silent question, "Do you belong here?" That job interview at TechLinks wasn't just another step. It was the step. The kind that could shift her entire life trajectory. She dreamed of that company since sophomore year. Sleek, innovative, with slogans about inclusion and changemakers. Getting in meant financial freedom. It meant proving that all the sacrifices, the missed parties, the extra shifts, the long nights were worth it. She had ironed that white pantsuit twice the night before, practiced answers to every possible question, even recited affirmations on the train ride over. I am prepared. I am qualified. I belong. The morning of the interview began with clear skies. Aaliyah woke up 2 hours early, heart pounding with excitement and nerves. She had done everything right. Double-checked her portfolio, packed 2 printed resumes, polished her shoes until they gleamed, and ironed her suit one last time. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head as she looked at herself in the mirror. You wear that white like a crown. Go show them who you are. She had laid out every detail with precision. Protein-packed breakfast. A list of possible questions and answers. Her go-to affirmations tucked inside her journal. The only thing she couldn't predict was the weather. The commute from East Atlanta to downtown was usually straightforward. A train ride, a short walk, done. But that morning, the forecast shifted quickly. By the time Aaliyah stepped out of her apartment, the first drops of rain had started to fall. She pulled her umbrella tighter and kept walking, refusing to let anxiety creep in. Midway through the subway ride, her train came to an abrupt halt. Delays. A voice over the speaker said something about flooding. Aaliyah's fingers tightened around the metal pole. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Her window was shrinking. When the train finally crawled into the station, the chaos had already begun. Water pooled at the base of the escalators. Commuters grumbled and hurried through the damp corridors. Aaliyah took off running, careful not to slip. That's when she saw him. A small boy, no older than 6 or 7, had slipped and fallen at the bottom of the stairs. His backpack had spilled open, papers soaked. He was crying, no adult in sight. Without thinking, Aaliyah dropped to her knees. Hey, you're okay, she said softly, gathering his books and offering a reassuring smile. She helped him up, checked for scrapes, and guided him to the side where a transit officer finally noticed. The boy's eyes locked with hers, wide, scared, but trusting. As she stood, she noticed it. Her sleeve was soaked. Her knee had a mud smear. The back of her blazer had rubbed against the gritty, wet wall. A corner of her resume poked out of her bag, damp at the edge. Her heart sank. The pristine look she had worked so hard for, gone. She rushed out of the station, head held high but mind spinning. She had no time to stop anywhere, no change of clothes, and the rain was only getting worse. Her shoes squelched with each step, the umbrella barely holding back the sideways wind. By the time she reached the TechLinks building, she looked like a storm survivor. Water dripped from her bag. Her curls clung to her face. Her once glowing white pantsuit told a different story now, one of struggle, not style. She stood across the street for a moment, watching the entrance. People in suits, dry, confident, polished. A Lyft driver honked behind her. A woman gave her a quick side glance as she passed by. Aaliyah closed her umbrella and looked down at herself. Then she looked up at the logo on the building. This interview wasn't just a shot at a job. It was the culmination of years of sacrifice. And yet, she had chosen a crying child over her own opportunity. Most would say that was foolish. But Aaliyah knew something they didn't. Character is revealed when no one's watching. And now everyone would be watching, judging if she walked through that door looking like this. But that didn't stop her. She adjusted her bag, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the storm once more. This time into the eye of it. The lobby of TechLinks was the picture of corporate elegance. Polished marble floors, minimalist furniture, and soft ambient lighting that made everything feel calm, calculated, and expensive. It smelled like leather chairs and fresh coffee. A space designed to intimidate and impress in equal measure. Aaliyah stepped through the glass doors, her wet shoes squeaking with every step. Instantly, heads turned. Two receptionists at the front desk paused mid-conversation. A man seated in the waiting area looked up from his phone and raised an eyebrow. Even the security guard gave a double take, eyes scanning from her drenched curls to the mud-streaked hem of her trousers. She didn't blame them. She looked out of place. Her white suit, once crisp and confident, was now clinging to her frame like a second skin. Water still trickled from her curls onto her collarbone. Her heels had left tiny wet footprints across the lobby, marking a silent trail behind her. But she kept walking. One step at a time. She approached the reception desk, forcing a polite smile.
Im Aliyah Thomas.
I have a 10 a.m. interview with the software engineering team. The receptionist blinked. Just a moment. She looked Aaliyah up and down, clearly trying to decide whether this was some kind of prank. Behind the desk, the second receptionist leaned toward her coworker and whispered something. Aaliyah caught the words "soaked" and "interview" before the woman straightened up and quickly turned away. Aaliyah kept her eyes forward, refusing to let her shoulders slump. The first receptionist returned with a stiff nod. Okay, you can take a seat. Someone will be down to get you shortly. Aaliyah nodded and moved to the waiting area. She chose a seat by the window, partly to avoid the stairs and partly to calm her mind. Outside, the rain continued to pour, tapping against the glass like a slow drumbeat. Her reflection stared back at her, tired, disheveled, and nothing like the woman she had hoped to present. She looked down at her resume, slightly wrinkled but still legible. The document hadn't changed. Her skills, her accomplishments, her worth, it was all still there. The mud didn't erase any of it. Still, doubt crept in. Would they take her seriously? Would they see the person or just the mess? 10 minutes passed. A woman in a blue blazer entered the lobby, looked around, and walked straight past Aaliyah. Another candidate, dressed perfectly, greeted her with a firm handshake. The two laughed as they walked toward the elevators. Aaliyah bit the inside of her cheek. She wasn't jealous, just tired. Tired of having to prove she belonged in spaces like this. Tired of carrying excellence like armor, always waiting for someone to question it. She was about to check the time when the elevator dinged. The doors opened, and out stepped a tall man in a charcoal suit. He didn't glance around. His eyes locked on Aaliyah immediately, not with judgment but with something else, recognition. He walked over. Ms. Thomas. She stood. Yes, sir.
I'm Jordan Hayes.
The lobby fell quiet. Even the receptionist stopped typing. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. The CEO? He extended his hand. I was told you were here. I wanted to come down personally. She reached out and shook his hand, hesitating slightly. Then he said the words that changed everything. I saw what happened outside. We have security footage from the station. You helped that boy. You could have walked away. But you didn't. Aaliyah froze, and then he smiled. Let's talk, he said. You're exactly the kind of person we need here. The elevator ride was quiet. Aaliyah stood beside the CEO, water still dripping softly from her cuffs, her heart pounding louder than the hum of the moving car. She kept glancing sideways, still unsure if this was real. Jordan Hayes didn't say much, but there was a calmness in his presence. Not cold, not distant, just observant, like he was letting her catch her breath before the moment really began. When the doors opened, they stepped into a floor unlike the lobby warmer, with open workspaces, sunlight spilling across hardwood floors, and the quiet thrum of innovation. Employees passed them, eyes widening as they recognized the man walking beside Aaliyah. No one questioned it. He led her into a private conference room. Minimalist like the rest of the office. One long table, two chairs, A small tray with coffee and bottled water sat off to the side. "Please," he gestured. "Have a seat." She lowered herself slowly, self-conscious about the water seeping from her blazer into the chair. Her voice cracked slightly as she spoke. "Mr. Hayes, I thank you. I didn't expect. You didn't expect to be seen," he interrupted gently. "Not like this." She nodded. "I get it, but I meant it. What I said downstairs. I watched the footage myself before I came down. The boy you helped? That was my son." Aaliyah's breath caught. "You're what?" He gave a small smile. "We live nearby. I usually drop him at school, but I had a call this morning, so he took the subway with his sitter. She lost him for just a moment. That was enough." Aaliyah sat frozen. The weight of what she thought was a random act had just shifted. "I saw the way you helped him."
No panik. No frustración.
Just instinct and care. You didn't know anyone was watching. That's what matters most. She blinked rapidly, trying to stay composed. "I almost didn't come in." "I know, but you did. Despite everything. That tells me who you are." He leaned back, then reached for a folder on the table. "Your resume is stellar. Georgia Tech, multiple internships, leadership experience. All impressive. But what I saw this morning, that was the differentiator." Aaliyah sat straighter, not from pride, but because she finally felt seen for more than just her paper accomplishments. Jordan continued, "We've interviewed a dozen candidates for this role, all qualified, all polished. But you brought something they didn't. You showed up under pressure, not just as a professional, but as a human being. That's the kind of integrity we can't teach." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "You didn't just show up for an interview. You showed up for a moment of humanity. That's the kind of person I want shaping the culture of this company." Tears threatened to spill, but Aaliyah held them in. She smiled, steady now. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I wasn't sure if any of that would matter." He nodded. "In a lot of places it wouldn't. But we're trying to build something different here. Something that doesn't just look inclusive on the website, but is inclusive from the inside out." He paused, then added, "By the way, my son? He asked about you. Said you were the nicest person he'd met all week." Aaliyah laughed, a real laugh this time, light and full. He stood, extending his hand again. "Let's skip the formal interview. I know who you are." She rose, shaking his hand with both of hers this time. "You're hired," he said. Aaliyah exhaled for the first time all morning. And for the first time she believed that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to prove herself anymore. Some people walk into rooms to impress. Others walk in and change everything. Aaliyah didn't just earn a job. She proved that integrity speaks louder than appearance, and kindness is never a weakness. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about how we judge others, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more real stories that challenge the way we see the world. Because in the end, it's not about looking the part, it's about being the part. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.